Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us at the start of the third day. So this is our Community Discovery Day, and we're really excited about this kind of new part of the schedule where we're really looking to separate this day out and focus on the power of community and why it's been so important for us as within the RSE movement. And explore some of the work that people are doing across different areas here. And then obviously from 9:30 onwards for the rest of the day, there's going to be lots of opportunity for you to really engage with the communities that you're interested in, find out about new communities and propose and find other colleagues who share interests and start new communities of your own as well. We'll be hearing this morning a little bit about all of that, and particularly about work that the Society is doing to help establish new communities and what kind of things like funding and initiatives are available for that purpose. So yeah, this is the purpose of the panel, just to give a little bit of the framing of the day. We've got three really great panelists, and I'm going to ask them just to introduce themselves and take a few moments to do that.
Okay, hi, I'm Andy Turner. I work at EPCC at the University of Edinburgh. I guess in this context, I'm here a bit because I'm helping organise the HPC RSE Community BOF, which is in this room straight after this session. And yeah, I mean, I think for me, even though I've worked at EPCC a long time, the community aspect is really, really important. That's where the strength of us are. We've all got great technical skills and things like that, you know, and we're all really clever and interesting people, but from, you know, I was an RSE before, I guess, the term RSE existed, and when RSE started, it was like I'd found a home, and it was that community home that I want to replicate for new people coming in, be it in a smaller part with the HPC stuff, or being part of the wider community. So, you know, I guess it sort of made it, the community is the really important bit for me, because it's just made me feel so much at home and feel like, you know, I've got the support of all you people out there helping me to do things. So this conference is always really inspiring when I come. I always come and I'm like, I'm going to change everything, and then run out of confidence. But then there's another conference to get me worked up again. So it's great.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Ballantyne. I am Community Manager for the Software Sustainability Institute, Logistics Chair for this wonderful conference, and I am currently serving as a trustee for the Society of RSE, which, yes, I'll be talking a bit about community management and how it's important, as well as answering some questions about specifically how the Society can help you build and sustain communities.
Hello, I'm Kirsty Pringle. I'm Project Manager for the Software Sustainability Institute, also based up in EPCC in Edinburgh. I'm interested in the community aspect just because I think the kind of the people aspect of research and how people work together in communities and groups is just so fascinating. It's brilliant to be able to have the experience of introducing two people that have something in common that can kind of go on. You can hear the conversation when they're like, oh, I've been meaning to talk to someone about this. And you get that kind of light bulb moment where you think, I love that kind of being able to facilitate those discussions. I find just so exciting and so rewarding. And it's something that really helps move research forward. It helps research and research software engineering really help grow and develop.
Thank you very much all. So I think we've captured some of the excitement about why the three of you feel really kind of passionate about community development. But the first kind of question that we have is, why is community building so important, specifically within the field of research software engineering? And how have you seen communities positively impact the field?
So I'd actually like to take the entire RSE community as an example here, and why community building is important in this field. So before 2012, before 2012, RSE-like roles were isolated. And it wasn't until the SSI Collaborations Workshop that year when a small group of people got together, much like we're here doing today, to discuss the lack of career opportunities in academia for software developers. So that meeting would eventually lead to a nationwide campaign, a vibrant international community, and a new role in research. I don't think you guys have heard of this one though, the research software engineer. Told you it would land. We're also seeing other communities that are aligned with what we're doing. One of them in particular actually stemmed from the the success of the RSE community, which is the Hidden Ref campaign, who are currently advocating for non-traditional roles such as RSEs, and are currently campaigning to change research evaluation to recognise everyone that's involved in research.
Fabulous, thank you. I think there's an element of, I think the RSE Society has been successful for loads of different reasons, but one of them is really they identified a need and they met a need, if you see what I mean. Like, there's lots of stories like Andy's where, you know, kind of came into the community and suddenly felt heard and felt like, oh, this is really helpful. I think it's really important to remember that, you know, it can be very dry research and research software engineering, but we're all people. We all have our own likes and dislikes. Nobody likes to work in isolation, complete isolation. Perhaps some people do, and that's fine, but most people need some form of network. And I think for me, moving forward, it's great to look at the successes, but there's obviously changes we want to make in society and research, across research culture. And as an individual, each of us individually can only do so much. We can achieve so much greater change if we work together, and we can only work together, we can only meet the people that we will work with on these new topics that we need to push forwards by coming together, having those discussions. If you're trying to do something new, it's very hard. You don't totally know how to do it, and having all these different ideas and feedbacks, I think, for me, is really motivating, but it's also just practical. I don't think we can achieve the changes we want to make if we work alone. So therefore, we need the community. So it's nice to see a focus on community, to see actually some time given over to it, to say, like, we'd like to form these communities. Let's have some time, let's have these discussions and see how we can move forward with these.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing that seems to happen, one question you get asked a lot, right, is what does the R mean in RSE? And what's the difference between just a software engineer and research software engineer? And I actually think one of the answers to that, when I was talking about somebody the other day about this, and I think one of the things that occurs to me is that as an RSE, one of my jobs with researchers is I've got more of a high up view than them. You know, they're very focused on their little piece of research. So, you know, I can say, well, you see the thing you're doing there, somebody over here and this other researcher has done exactly this, is treating exactly the same problem. You know, you can get more by collaborating together. And the sort of community within the RSE and the community of RSE is just an extension, a natural extension of that sort of way of working. So I think a fundamental part of being an RSE is having that community way of working. We see that, right? This community is hugely welcoming and open. We work a lot with open source. We talk about FAIR. All of these things have the same underlying fundamental ethos, which is both in the way we work day to day with researchers, but also within our own community opening up. And that's why this sort of community building comes so naturally, I think, as part of this.
Absolutely, thank you very much. So perhaps we can move on to kind of exploring support from specifically the Society and other areas as well. So what role does the Society of Research Software Engineering play in supporting both established but also emerging communities? And are there specific initiatives that have been particularly impactful? I'd like to come to Lindsay for this, as she's a trustee in the Society at the moment, and share some initial thoughts on this.
You're putting me off here because you missed a question, but that's fine. I'll let you off. So the Society of RSE support everyone in the community, not just people who are members of the Society. So we provide this wonderful conference. We provide people with a voice through various channels. I'm not going to pretend I know all of them because I've not actually been in this community for all that long. We support the community via many, many working groups. Special interest group, we only have one at the moment, but we are working on at least 3 more currently. Let me check my notes. So the SIGs are created within the community to fit a particular need, such as skill sharing and connectivity. We have our trustees that are acting as liaisons and advisors for these special interest groups. So you've always got people that are there to help you and to find more information within the community to be able to help you out with that. One of the other things that we provide is the Events and Initiatives grant. So this allows members of our community to run events that they otherwise might not have been able to do. We also have the mentorship scheme, which you may or may not have heard of. So I think we're in the 3rd year of that now. It's going quite successfully. So I believe we had 20 pairs the first year, another 25 the 2nd year, and we currently have 28 pairs of people that are working together. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. So I'm interested in the other panelists' perspective as well on the initiatives and the support from different areas in the community as well, and kind of what initiatives you think have been really successful.
Yeah, can do. I mean, I think it's great that they do all that. I would really like to see the SIGs grow as much as they can. I've got vested interest in my Green RSE SIG, but I think it's a really nice way of extending out from, so keeping a connection to the society but extending out. And I think in terms of future support, I know you didn't ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, but there's some kind of knowledge sharing around how you maintain and keep a community. So just suggestions, like we've all been on Zoom calls where we've tried to kind of facilitate a discussion, and it's just like, it's like pulling teeth, isn't it? And like sometimes you think, I've not got the right people, I've not created the right atmosphere, something isn't working here. And I would love to have more opportunity to kind of share that experience and say, this isn't quite working. I know people want to be here because they've turned up, but what I'm doing isn't quite right. So I wonder if it's something kind of in terms of training or maybe mentorship around community. But I think that would be really, really useful, because it's quite daunting if you get everybody together and you're like, right, I've got everybody together now, let's have this discussion. And if it's not flowing naturally, something needs tweaked. It's often not a big tweak, but I'd love to see that kind of knowledge sharing or experience sharing. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I can see where training and mentorship would help with that, as well as I think a lot of people need to be led by example.
Yeah.
So when you start these things and show them how it can be done, and they just get this natural confidence from seeing someone else do it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think because some of us who are a bit older, I guess like me, who've been doing this for a while, we picked up bits and pieces about how to sort of organise communities and how to run events and things like that. I'm not saying we're perfect, but you know, we're like magpies. You know, you take bits from all the different events you've been to and all the different things and the different communities you've been involved in, right? So, you know, particularly influential in sort of, I guess, I feel particularly the carpentries. People have been hugely influential in generating how to run a community and how to learn how to run events and how to do things differently and more inclusively, and what you should be thinking about in running events. But there's other people. I mean, I've worked with the HPC SIG who have been doing events for a long time as well, and they've had lots of ideas and taken the experience from there. So I feel like I'm just, you know, I don't have much creativity myself. I just steal everybody else's ideas and put them together and try and make the events work, and the sort of mentorship and a bit of support around that. Because I think one thing you're trying to do when you're building community is mentorship, right? So you're trying to make the community sustainable by bringing in people into the community and trying to, I guess, pass on a bit of your experience, tell them what worked well, what didn't work well. And we're sort of doing that mentorship in an ad hoc way, but maybe a more structured approach across the various communities in here, the way they could get together would mean you'd get better progress with those sort of things. And maybe society could help facilitate that sort of mentorship and those sort of bringing together the community leaders and aspiring community leaders in the same way they do with RSE leaders and aspiring leaders.
I think this is why we need conversations like this, because we have people assuming that we know what the community needs, but we need to obviously work harder to speak to everyone and find out what it is that we're doing well, the things that we're not quite, and how we can change that to help the community as a whole.
Absolutely, and I think what Kirsty said about sometimes when you're trying to establish a community, you get everyone together and for some reason it just isn't going to work. Like it's just not working, the ideas aren't flowing, and it's very draining because it takes a lot of energy to start this and maintain it. So that's a real challenge, and I was interested, because you've all got a lot of experience, like what are the other types of challenges that you've faced when you're setting up communities? The kind of getting the right people in the room is one of them. What are some of the other things that we found challenging in the past?
I've got a big one. Time. There's not a lot of time. And I usually find when people are doing any community building activities, you're usually doing that on top of your full-time role already. I don't have a solution to this. One of the things I would suggest is working as a team. We do find that that is obviously helpful. Another thing that I was thinking of is the evolution of a community as well is a challenge. So the RSE community itself has been going now, not going to count really quickly, but since 2012, I believe, and it's evolved a lot since then. So for example, the RSE Leaders Network that was established in 2015, we've noticed that doesn't quite fit with the community the way that it did all those years ago. So we currently have a survey out to the community to ask them to give us ideas on how we can move forward so that it better fits everyone in the community.
Yeah, I think one challenge that keeps recurring on the HPC side is reaching the people who want to be in the community but don't know that yet, or don't know they're supposed to be part of the community, right? So you have communication channels where you publicise events and the community and things like that, but they tend to be to the sort of communication channels where people are already engaged somehow. So you put it out to a mailing list, you put it on the HPC channel in the RSE Slack, or you go out to a mailing list, maybe the HPC SIG mailing list or something like that. But these are all people who already sort of know a bit that they want to be involved in this community. And actually part of the people, some of the people you really, really want to meet, want to get in, are the people who are isolated. Because then the community is really important to them. It tells them what's going, it's a way for them to find out what's going on more widely. It's a way for them to build their contact network and to remove that isolation. But they're the people it's hardest to find because you don't know how to find them, and it's always by chance somehow. They get an email from somebody in their university that somehow mentions your event, and they're interested enough to turn up. So I think, I don't have a solution, but I think that's a big challenge, is reaching to the people outside the community who you don't know, sort of don't know are there already.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of those. I think in terms of time, one thing, I mean, obviously there's a time taken to organise events and things, but also I feel sometimes that if you're turning up to a network, if you're turning to a conference, you just say to your line manager, I'd like to go to this conference, it's approved, that's fine, and your time is kind of boxed for that. But if you're going to a meeting that's slightly more informal, it's more of a networking meeting, it feels that people are squeezing this into their breaks rather than this is a legitimate work thing to do. And it does feel sometimes like if you're organising it, then yeah, I agree, often that's kind of pushed on top of everything else. But also for attending, it'd be really nice if you line manage staff and staff are wanting to go to these meetings, that you kind of that time is recognised, that that's important for them to build their community. I'd like to see that recognised a little bit more, because it does take time. You can't do everything all at once, and yeah. But
one of the key things there, I think, is having quite a lot of people in the sort of leadership group or in the organising group. The more people you have in the organising group, it becomes a bit more of a pain to organise the meetings, to actually organise the meetings, if you see what I mean. But actually it spreads the load so much more, because it's a bit spare-timey. Everybody can give different amounts of time at different things, because somebody might get ill, or they might suddenly have a family crisis, or something at work might have to take precedence, and then other people could step up there a bit. And you get that balance, and I've seen this. I mean, the trustees work exactly the same, man. Sure, certainly when I was a trustee, it worked exactly the same. Different people could contribute different levels at different points throughout the lifetime. So the problem comes when you've only got one or two people then leading the organisation of the community, because then it starts to become really unsustainable. Unless those people can really put time aside, it's very, very difficult.
So I think that idea of not overburdening the community manager and the difference between active and passive participation. So, people who are interested in the community, helping them understand like in what ways they can contribute and maintain and kind of sustain the community in ways, and being really clear about that without it feeling overwhelming. I do think that RSE has had a lot of successes in that. But if there's any comments on that area, maybe we can explore that for a few minutes.
Well, just when you mentioned community management there, I find like I've been in this role for about 18 months trying to learn a whole lot of things. And I find one of the helpful things to be is just a person who is the hub of knowledge. So you know who knows everything else. You cannot possibly know everything to be able to give the information to the community members that they want, but having the information on who and where they can get that information from, I think is actually a really good thing to know. So help me get that knowledge, by the way.
I think one thing that you touched on earlier as well in terms of communities that you kind of reflected with the RSC leaders meeting, you think, oh, okay, maybe this needs a wee bit of a change. Like, there's also the kind of self-evaluation I think our community is pretty good at, but it's slightly uncomfortable to do, and I don't necessarily always know how to do well. So you say, like, you know, at the end of the meeting, was this meeting useful? What would you like more? And I don't always know whether that's really getting that useful answers. I mean, people hate filling in forms, but I don't know how to do that better. But that kind of taking a step back from your community every so often and saying, is this really meeting the needs of our community? Is this working? If it's not working, why is it not working? How can I change it? That I think having that, and probably having a larger organising community and more voices in that, is really helpful, because you get more. It's not just, you know, you thinking this is what is needed, therefore I'm doing it. But I think that self-reflection within a community is really, really important.
Yeah, and I guess one of the problems with this is we're having this discussion and you're talking about it and you're like, oh, we should do this, and it's best practice to do this and this. And suddenly anybody who wants to get involved in community is thinking, no chance, I want to get involved in organising. Right, listen to all this stuff I'm going to have to do. And one of the things that I think you have to remind people that come into the community who maybe have not been as involved in organising things, they can take it a bit too seriously. Sometimes I get a bit hung up on, you know, we've got to do it perfect. It's got to be really, really good. And my experience actually is that, well, one, people are really forgiving because people are just grateful you're doing something. I certainly was before I was doing community stuff. I was like, this is amazing. These people are giving their time. And that's part of why I want to do it. I want to give something back, right? But yeah, you shouldn't take it too seriously. If you don't do it perfectly, but you get people together to chat, that's value in itself already, you know. If something doesn't work, a meeting doesn't quite work out or go as well as you think, that's just the way it is. You've learned something for next time, you do it differently next time. I guess, yeah, it's the sort of worst things happen at sea sort of approach. You know, do something, have fun, do what you can while you can do it. It doesn't mean you have to do everything to perfection and really well and put all absolute masses and take all the feedback seriously. You can gather feedback. I mean, I think, you know, again, this is a carpentry thing, right? Feedback can be green and red stickies. Just get people to say one thing they really enjoyed, one thing that could have been better or that was missed off, and stick it on the wall on the way out the door. You've gathered feedback. You know, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. That's so easy. And it's those sorts of tips and tricks. And yeah, so I guess this is my pitch for people to get involved in helping to organise communities. Do what you can. Don't feel bad for the things you can't do. Just give what you can and what you're able to.
Yeah. So we don't need to aim for perfection.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think getting people together that share an interest and just having that conversation is really important and a really positive thing. And I think that in the RSC community, I feel that as well. I take a lot of energy away from that, and I try to give it back as well. So
I just mentioned something on the feedback. It's something that's just occurred to me right now that I haven't done before. And we're saying about the effort of people having to give or get feedback after events. But I'm starting to think that before you actually do the next iteration of that event, is that a good time to get the feedback? Because people, they've done the meeting, they've left, they're like, oh, just move on with my life. The next time you get in touch and say, we're going to do this again, they start thinking about the things they didn't quite like last time and the things that they might want to get out of this going forward. So maybe we can actually gather feedback in that organisation stage.
Thanks, Lindsay. So we kind of talked about getting trying to get the right people in the right room, having the conversations, and there are a lot of communities today that will be doing sessions through bird of feather sessions, and I'm interested to hear from Lindsay on this, just about the society is really keen for people to form special interest groups, and there's a structure there to support them, and there's going to be financial kind of incentives and availability to support them. And I think it'd be really interesting for people to hear a little bit more about that formation process of special interest groups and the finances that are available from the society.
That's a difficult one because this is actually not something I know a huge amount about. So the special interest groups, we have one currently, and I am the trustee advisor for that. So one thing I do know is we do actually provide a trustee advisor to help you with this. We do have a web page that has a whole lot of information on it. So I skimmed that silly o'clock last night trying to be like, if I'm asked this question, how much of this information can I take in? Not going to lie, not a huge amount. But there, there is a process. I think it's kind of decide what it is that you want to do. Maybe speak to your peers, find out if there's other people that want to do this with you, and then approach the society. We have a terms of reference. We'll help you write the terms of reference, form the special interest group, provide that trustee, advisor, liaison, and attempt to mentor you through it and give you advice and keep maintaining
Absolutely.
the special interest group.
So there is that structure there, and I think that it's likely that we can share how to think about forming special interest groups and some more details about what the society is offering to support that throughout the day as these sessions evolve. And obviously we support all of the communities that are meeting today to think about that process and engage with it. So I think that we can maybe just have one more quick question before we finish, and then start the bird of feather sessions. So I'll pick out the kind of future directions because I think that's a nice one to end on. So looking forward, what new or emerging trends in research software engineering communities do you think we should be paying attention to, and how can we best support these developments? Andy?
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to say so. I mean, I think in terms of the new trends, I think the green RSE one is certainly in terms of what I've been interested in and what I think is important. You know, understanding how we can have a positive impact on climate emergency. It's hard to see past that being the most important one for me. And I certainly can't claim that the HPC one is a new thing, because it's probably like ancient, more ancient than anything. I mean, we still use Fortran, right? So.
Evolving your community, of course, so it's always relevant, Andy.
Yeah, we will evolve to continue to use Fortran.
I mean, obviously I agree with Andy in the green RSE one. But I think it's a nice example of where there is a real huge need to work and work fairly quickly, and nobody can do that by themselves. We have this huge thing, the climate emergency, to address, and actually we have the skills. There's so many skills within this room that can work towards that to help that. And you know, this is not going to get solved by one person. This is only going to get solved by people coming together and working together. And so it's not an either or. You know, this is the only way we can do this, is by working together. So I think, on one hand, I find that quite scary and very urgent, but on the other hand, I feel quite optimistic in the fact that we have the skills, we have the knowledge, we have the enthusiasm. So great, let's do this. Let's kind of work together and see what our community can do for this huge global problem.
Where can they see you?
Amazing. So we have 2 sessions. We have a morning session that starts at 11 and an afternoon session that starts at 2.
So we'll draw it to a close there. Hopefully you've got a flavour there of kind of the value of community within RSE, and kind of motivated to join the sessions for the rest of the day. So please join me in thanking all of our panellists today. Thank you.